playoffs have gone for touchbacks. That's Sammy Watkins, who is deep with Jerron Brown. Speed galore for the Tigers. And the last game of the season is underway. Watkins. Taj Boyd, the ACC Player of the Year, the ACC Offensive Player of the Year, second in the conference in passing yards, leads the conference in touchdown passes. Won both of those ballots by 1 vote and set the single game total TD and pass records this year for a single game in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Did that in a big back and forth game against NC State, but let's see if Boyd can settle in. He struggled early against South Carolina in the last regular season ball game.
Ellington will get it on first down, and Ellington will pick up 3. Gained over 1,000 yards this year. A great compliment to their passing attack.
And of course, Clemson, one of the teams in the country that goes very fast. Their goal is somewhere around 90 snaps of offense per game. And here you see them no huddle. They get going pretty quick.
Sammy Watkins in the backfield. He'll get the ball. He's blasted. Fumbles and LSU recovers. Barkevius Mingo drilled him, and Craig Lawson came up with the loose ball. That's a play we had not seen them run. The handoff to Watkins.
And Barkevius Mingo, as Watkins is down, because Mingo, watch how quickly Mingo flashes to the inside. Here's a guy who, if he comes out, is likely a top 10 pick. Extremely athletic, very fast, and John Chavis decides to move his defensive line. That's a called stunt by Chavis, the defensive coordinator, and you see Mingo's explosive ability. And unfortunately, this typically is a read play. This is something that you'd read the backside in. The problem is Mingo was the front side in, so Boyd is not reading number 49. He's reading Montgomery, number 99, and never saw Mingo come unblocked.
And Watkins just got blown up. It actually looked like the handoff may have come a little high. It appeared he had it up on his shoulder.
Mingo got there so quickly, though, and I'm not so sure that Watkins, as he was taking this ball, did not see 49. Look how fast Mingo comes in here.
No, he bobbled it. The handoff was good. It rode up on his shoulder.
Well, you make that call. If you're a defensive coordinator and you make that call, the idea is, okay, maybe we'll give up the edge. If we take our defensive end and move him down inside, you have somebody to replace him. But if you make this call as John Chavis, right here in the middle of your screen, if you make that call, you're saying, you know what, maybe we're going to give up the edge. But with a guy like Mingo and that type of speed, you make that call and you get a blow-up play, and that's just how you draw it up. But talks about a guy who's had a rough year.
He really has. He has been sick. He was suspended at the start of the year, had a virus. It was very difficult for him to get in shape. He didn't have the explosive plays he had the season before. As a freshman, a lot of people, including me, thought he was the best player in the country.
And Chad Morris, in his first year as the offensive coordinator last year, you could tell he agreed with you, because they designed things to go to Sammy Watkins. And in talking to Morris the other day about this ball game, and you can see with the right foot, Watkins not able to put pressure on it. But Chad Morris now without a guy who he told us very clearly we're going to feed him early and often, and so now it goes up to guys like DeAndre Hopkins, and another guy, Adam Humphries, maybe has to step up in that inside slot position as well.
Well, Chad Morris says for the first time this year, Sammy Watkins was 100%. The first time this year. Last season, when he was 100% all year, he gained 1,219 yards catching the football. This year down to 708. And he's not really looked the same. He did not have the explosiveness he did a year ago. And now it will be interesting to see what Clemson will be able to do on offense when they get it back.
And for Clemson, what a bad start after last year's debacle in the Orange Bowl against West Virginia. To be on their heels this early, not so good.
Jeremy Hill is the starting tailback. They'll use 4 guys. Big hole for Hill. Pounds forward to near the 16-yard line. Zach Mettenberger Comes to LSU after starting his career at Georgia, 6'5", 230 pounds, and LSU going in a hurry. Hill, wide open, touchdown. Made a little juke in the hole, and when he got through it, there was nobody left. And if you're a Clemson fan, you're saying, uh-oh. Off for the point after 7-0 LSU.
Well, the offensive staff from LSU went fast on this play, and I think it was because the play before LSU's offensive line manhandled Clemson. That time it was Jeremy Hill making the middle linebacker Spencer Shuey miss. Freshman, they were going to feed this young dynamic player the ball early and often, as we said, right at his top, and now that's just completely gone for Clemson.
Jerron Brown and Andre Ellington are back. Ellington will replace Watkins on kick returns. Clemson crowd just stunned right now, and you can't blame them. Ellington lets this one go. We'll check in with Janine.
Well, Mike and Ed, in what was supposed to be a breakout performance tonight for Sammy Watkins, you just saw him being carted into the locker room. He could not put any weight on his right leg. Danny Poole and the training staff was looking at his ankle. They've taken him in for x-rays. And as for the rest of the offense and trying to fix that mistake that caused that fumble, offensive coordinator Chad Morris was asking his offensive line, guys, tell me what you saw. Help me fix it.
They saw a flash. 49 timed the snap, and it was a great call. I'm not sure what you can do.
Humphreys will probably get most of the playing time. That was him on the fly sweep, and Lamine Barrow made the tackle for LSU. You can already see how fast LSU's defense is.
And I think that's the scary part for Chad Morris. He's saying, help me fix this. But there is a time sometimes when the other team's playing faster than you, and there is no fix. I think screens, draws, some delayed runs, just something to take the sting off.
Boyd flushed. Benny Logan made the stop, and there was pressure on him.
Well, Barkevious Mingo is just absolutely feeling it tonight. Look at that spin move. So athletic. Just barely lost his footwork. Here's a guy, a junior, not sure what's going to happen at the next level, but he's playing at a really high level right now.
They were worried that Gifford Timothy, the right tackle, would have a lot of problems with him, and he has so far. Here's a pass underneath. It's going to be enough for a first down to Ellington out of the backfield. And it will be a first down for Clemson. Simon made the tackle.
Wonderful read by Taj Boyd. LSU playing completely coverage, knowing they can get pressure now with their front four. And because it took a while to get off, your linebackers are slow to come up. That's Lamine Barrow, who's late, and a nice move by the senior Ellington to pick up the first.
Darrell Smith comes in. Number 40, he's a fullback. And Boyd on the keeper will pick up a couple.
Well, that was a little bit of happy feet that time by Boyd. That was a called run. Chad Morris has a lot of design runs this year for Boyd, a guy who got up to almost 245 pounds last year. He's played much leaner this year.
He'll keep it again. And there just isn't very much room. You mentioned how fast sometimes players can be, and there's no answer for it. Right now, Clemson does not have an answer for it.
And the problem is now you're behind on third down. You've got a third and long, and you're going against the defense, even though you're one of the best offenses in the country. But LSU can play coverage. There's just no reason for them to bring any pressure, so this is falling into LSU's hands.
Roderick McDowell comes in as a blocker, and Taj Boyd down the middle, complete. Got it to Hopkins. Excellent throw by Boyd.
Start with the offensive line. Boyd had time because this route, this was a second read. You can see the first read is the tight end on the outcut forward, and Boyd dropped that ball in there perfectly. And if you're not familiar with Clemson, they all started screaming.
Time out. LSU. Their first charge, timeout.
LSU will use the timeout
for immediate
on defense. It's 7-0 LSU.
that may become a bigger part of the plan for the Clemson Tigers.
Fake to Ellington. Boyd under pressure. Runs away from 3 different tacklers. Gets a block downfield and then is drilled. Holy cow. Craig Lawson came up to finish off the play, but Boyd, a great job of avoiding the pressure.
Well, and it's the slide by Boyd as Lawson goes high. Let's see if a knee, yeah, the head bounced off the turf, and that's the problem when your quarterback runs and you have athletes at this level. They're going to get bounced around a little bit. I didn't see anything that showed me Boyd was woozier than getting up. He got up fairly quickly, but those are the type of hits you open up to.
Second and a long 2. Ellington straight ahead, should have the first down.
And that's in this game, and Lawson coming in does a nice job of bringing his forms. You'd rather see a guy wrap up, quite frankly, but you see the head of the quarterback, Boyd, bounce off of that turf. That was a lot of pressure. And if you're going to slide, that's the hardest thing, teaching guys what time to slide, because obviously that was late. A clean hit by Lawson could have been costly.
Taj Boyd setting all kinds of records. Hangs in the pocket, goes to Hopkins. Hopkins has it inside the 20-yard line. Jalen Mills, the true freshman corner, had the coverage. He's the young man who came on and replaced Tyrann Mathieu.
And a blitz got to Boyd right as he threw this, but you start to see Hopkins' ability to catch the ball. This guy really can snatch it.
Ellington, nice cut. Ellington near the 10. Eric Reed, the consensus All-American safety, had to come up to make the stop.
And this is the 4th game that we've covered of Clemson this year, and we've talked a ton to Dabo Swinney and his staff about this team bouncing back from bad games and bad plays, and they promised up and down this is a different team. This is a pretty good answer to what happened with the fumble and the easy score by LSU to get started.
Boyd slipped a tackle inside the 5 to the 1, touchdown. Jerron Brown with a good block. And Taj Boyd gets his 10th rushing touchdown of the season. That was a great drive for the Clemson Tigers. Catanzaro gets the point after. And after you've been hit that quickly for 7 by LSU, what an answer by the Clemson Tigers.
Where it got ugly early, Clemson with a huge answer to something that could have changed momentum very significantly early in the game with the turnover.
Spencer Benton to kick to Michael Ford, and he will watch the ball go over his head, and they'll start from the 25.
Well, you mentioned the block by Jerron Brown. Watch, he's working one-on-one with the 3rd linebacker to that side, which is Quan Alexander, and that's a great job by Brown. He stayed with it. You never know. You hear the term finish the block. That last little bit there where Boyd was behind him, there's no way that Brown knows the guy's right behind him. So you just have to keep going and finish the block. That was a really nice job by the receiver on a linebacker.
LSU got its points off of the turnover. They get 31% of their points this year off of the turnovers. Michael Ford will be the tailback on this series. Mettenberger, play action fake, and he throws to Landry. And Landry will pick up 5 yards. The sophomore out of Convent, Louisiana, brought down by Rashard Hall. Clemson very thin in the secondary.
And then, you looked at LSU. If you saw LSU during the year, you'd think they're going to run it 50, 60, 70 times tonight. But don't be surprised. And Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator for Clemson, is not going to be surprised if LSU comes out throwing it around. And you see number 80, Jarvis Landry. They're starting to be able to build a pass game around this guy. A very, I think, special receiver with a really nice future.
Ford. Clemson defense swarmed. Josh Watson made him cut back inside, and Grady Jarrett, the nose man, was there for a tackle. Good defense by Clemson.
I'm not so sure that Zach Mettenberger shouldn't have gotten out of this play, because when the defense reset for Clemson, Rashard Hall had such a wide, the safety who had come down to cover the tight end was so wide, there was no way that they were going to get that edge. I think if anything, maybe get back the other way, and now you're sitting in a 3rd and long with pretty good crowd noise by Clemson.
Hill and Ware in the backfield with Mettenberger on 3rd and 7. Under pressure. Mettenberger got out of there, but it was whistled dead. Mettenberger complaining to the referee, but Malachi Goodman had him, and if there's somebody else close, that's a safety issue.
Well, remember when we saw Markevius Mingo come inside? Well, exact same thing this time by Goodman. It is a end tackle stunt where the end comes inside first and then the defensive tackle loops around. And unfortunately for LSU, Vidal Alexander, the right tackle, couldn't stop Goodman's charge.
Brad Wing, the superb punter, suspended for this game for violating team rules, and Jamie Keene gets off a 51-yard kick in his place. The All-State Sugar Bowl is on ESPN Wednesday night. The Big East champion Louisville Cardinals, number 21, take on number 3 Florida State from the ACC. The All-State Sugar Bowl coverage starts at 8 o'clock Wednesday on ESPN, also live on the Watch ESPN app.
You know, we were talking to John Chavis, the defensive coordinator for LSU, as we take a look at the backup punter, and that could be an adventure, but this was in John Chavis's years in the SEC, which are many. He said this was the best year for top teams.
Clemson will give it to Roderick McDowell, who only had 76 carries all year. 5'9", 195-pound junior. So Chad Morris throwing a couple wrinkles into his offense.
But to hear a guy like John Chavis, who spent all those years at Tennessee and then, of course, was hired here 3 years ago by Les Miles. But Utah, there are 6 teams in this league that are 2 to 3 plays away from having the right to play for the championship.
Boyd on the keeper. Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah.
I mean, the SEC is always strong, but this year it was ridiculous. You literally had a half a dozen teams who could have finished 1, 2, or 3 in the country.
If you finish the season with a 14 playoff like we will do in 2014, you could argue 3 teams from the SEC and Notre Dame are what that looked like this year.
Right.
Because Georgia with 2 losses, how do you make the argument they stay in?
Boyd running away from expected pressure, and the ball knocked out of the hands of Jerron Brown. Darrell Simon, good coverage. That ball could have been caught, and Simon reached in and slapped at it.
And this is a secondary that has had some struggles here in the last 3 ball games. Every quarterback they played ended up with a career high. That's never a good thing, but that time Simon, good break on the ball, and we saw the good blocking skills by Brown earlier that time. Because the defender gets there too soon, he's not able to hang on to it.
Spencer Benton punting to Odell Beckham Jr., who has 2 returns this year for touchdown. He is so dangerous. Tripped up at the 40. Return of 12 after a 46-yard punt. Ryan Norton down on special teams. The Rose Bowl on ESPN New Year's Day. Senior running back Monte Ball leads Wisconsin against number 6 Stanford. The Rose Bowl presented by Vizio. Coverage begins tomorrow, 4:30 on ESPN, also live on the Watch ESPN app.
And I think Les Miles may be talking to his offensive staff right about now, saying, I know we want to throw it some, but let's look like Wisconsin on this drive. I have a feeling LSU may come out and just start throwing some haymakers at this defensive front and see if they can't dent them a little bit.
Jeremy Hill is back in. Mettenberger again as LSU coming off the edge. Malachi Goodman and Grady Jarrett.
Well, this is all about Goodman, and this is a guy who's a senior. So we're talking about guys who may be playing their last game. This guy definitely is, and right now, he looks like what Mingo looked earlier in the game for LSU. He's getting off the snap, and right now, the true freshman, let's not forget that LSU had 3 offensive linemen go down, including the right tackle, but Alexander is struggling.
They have been waiting for Malachi Goodman to do this his entire career. They said he has always been a technically sound, good player, but they expected spectacular out of him. And right now, they are getting spectacular.
And again, this time, right now, LSU's offensive front is struggling with Clemson and their movement. That time, Goodman came clean, and the only reason Mettenberger got off the throw was it was a one-step and throw it. Otherwise, I'm not so sure 97 doesn't get pressure again. So, you know, if you're LSU, I'm not sure a drop back is the call here. This you may be looking at a wide receiver screen. I think they may be nervous about the pressure Clemson is getting.
Mediocre numbers for LSU on third down conversions. They have given up 26 sacks coming into this game. Pressure again on Mettenberger. Throws as he's hit. Guess who? Malachi Goodman got there, and then Corey Crawford joined the party.
And the referees are now talking about whether this is intentional grounding. Now, it's not going to be the end of the world. It'll be the loss of about 3 yards because it'll just become fourth down like it is. But I do believe they have to call intentional grounding. Mettenberger had nobody in the area and nobody, and he was not outside the tackle.
Intentionally grounding. Offense from the foul. Lost the down. Fourth down.
So not as big a deal that it's the same as a sack, but Malachi Goodman, and right now, if you're the offensive staff, Greg Studraw, the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, and Steve Cragthorpe, the quarterback coach, they have to talk about getting help to their right side. If we're going to have drop-back passes, right now we're being beat on that side of our offensive line. They're going to have to make a big adjustment.
Jamie Keane is in to punt. The true freshman from Australia who grew up with Australian rules football. Takes a high snap. Just crushed another. Humphreys driven all the way back to the 12. And remarkable coverage by LSU. Just all over it. Sandoff, the first man downfield. It's a loss of 1 on a return after a 53-yard blast from Jamie Keane.
Well, Keane, as we were talking to Les Miles yesterday, he said there's going to be a lot of wows and occasional because he's a very young punter, handles a high snap and gets off a great kick. But you mentioned from Australia, Brad Wing, the young man who was suspended for this game for a violation of team rules, helped find this young man. He's an Australian as well.
Right.
Only the second game for Keane, and he comes up with a big one.
Clemson takes over inside its own 10. Ellington up to about the 13-yard line where Ego Ferguson makes the tackle.
And Ellington, a guy who has tremendous speed. When you talk to coaches who have to defend Clemson, of course they always talk about Hopkins and Watkins, but almost every coach says, but maybe the fastest guy they have is Ellington, at least acceleration-wise.
Boyd steps up and throws. The pass caught by Brown. He's drilled, and a flag is down. Eric Reed made the hit. This may be another 15 yards.
It's a Big Ten crew sent to do this game for the Chick-fil-A, and I'd be surprised if that's not the call.
Personal foul. High hit. Defense number 1. 15-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
So the rule says if a player targets at the shoulders or above, it is a penalty. And it's because, or if the helmet leads and goes first. So that is the correct call. This was called exactly right. I know the crowd is booing, but when you drop the head and that's the first thing that hits, they're going to call that.
Here comes the blitz. Flanker screen to Humphreys. Right play against that defense. There's another flag down.
And an LSU Tiger player down, Jalen Mills, the fine true freshman defensive back, holding his left leg at the end of this play.
Mills tried to get up and cannot.
Well,
during the play, illegal block in the back, offense number 18, 10-yard penalty. Repeat, first down.
Let's check in with Janine.
Well, guys, it looks like this LSU defense is getting banged up. If you're wondering why defensive end Sam Montgomery is not out there, he's got a foot injury right now. They had actually taken some special insoles out of his shoe and replaced them with a different type, but he's still on the sideline. Eric Reed was also getting stretched out by the trainers. He was pointing to his hamstring, saying his hamstring was cramping up, and now Jalen Mills as well.
Well, Montgomery, Janine, along with Mingo are the bookend defensive ends for this team, both projected as top 15, 16, 17 draft choices. Here is the injury.
And that's Mills, who gets rolled up by his own guy, Deion Jones. Excuse me, that was Kevin Minter that landed on the foot and looked actually a little similar to what happened to Sammy Watkins when Barkevious Mingo landed on his foot. But this is a guy who has been cross-training all year as the nickel and as the cornerback. And, of course, with Tyrann Mathieu, the Heisman Trophy finalist from last year, being booted, this is a guy, Jalen Mills, that has stepped up and played well. So an important loss, both Montgomery and Mills, if they're not able to return.
This LSU defense, I've never seen so many freshmen as either starters or backups, not even redshirt freshmen, true freshmen. They come game ready when they come to LSU.
And Jalen Collins, a guy who can come over and play that corner spot. He usually plays nickel, but yeah, it's been a pretty good run at LSU in the recruiting department, hasn't it?
Yes.
And development. We got to give them credit for that as well.
You bet. Boyd held onto the ball and paid the price. Barkevious Mingo unimpeded to the quarterback. And by the time Taj Boyd pulled the ball back, all he could see was a huge 49 in his face.
Well, John Chavis is doing just a tremendous job moving his defensive line around. That time,
Penalties decline.
5-yard penalty,
down.
they'll turn it down.
right, and there was confusion by the Clemson offensive line. Mingo's good enough. You don't need to cut a guy like that free. But because they moved the defensive line, watch Mingo move to the inside, and the offensive line for Clemson, the right tackle, Gifford Timothy, never realized, oh, wait a minute, I've got to go down and get that guy. That was a freebie.
Mingo coming again. They go with the draw, trying to keep the pressure away. DJ Howard gets a carry. Josh Downs will make the tackle. Well, we've already had one spectacular play after another. It's been hit or miss in the defense, and now we have another Clemson injury, and it's Gifford Timothy, the right tackle, the young man that they said we're going to try to give some help tonight with chipping with the back or having a tight end to that side. But if he goes down, Clemson's got a problem.
Shaq Anthony is a freshman who's listed as his backup. And the problem, the speed that LSU is playing right now is a blur for the guys who are starters. Now you start getting into your second string offensive line, a guy who's been sitting on the sideline, not quite warmed up, not used to what the guys who have seen out there have seen. And if you're Chad Morris, the offensive coordinator, I would not let my quarterback stand in that pocket for more than a second or two.
5 or 6 times, Mingo has been by the tackle just as he comes out of his stance.
I wonder if LSU may have not picked something up on film. Because when you go to that shotgun snap, a lot of times it's silent. It's by a movement or by some motion by the quarterback. And I wonder if maybe they haven't picked up a tip that Dalton Freeman, the center, is giving them, that they know the stat. Because that's the only way to explain some of the get-offs of the ball that Mingo and some of his mates have had.
I don't know. I've seen Mingo before.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
3rd and 25. Boyd throws underneath, got it to his tight end, Brandon Ford, but he's drilled immediately by the consensus All-American safety, Ed Reed.
But you see what Chad Morris has to do. It just has to. 3rd and 25, there's no way they're going to ask Taj Boyd to stand back there with the rush he's going to see. So you go with the quick slant and hope maybe they blow the coverage and you break the tackle.
Beckham is deep for the punt. And the 27 has a little seam, takes it up to the 35. good 8-yard return, and we check in with Janine.
Well, guys, Clemson receiver Sammy Watkins will be returning here shortly in street clothes. His ankle x-rays were negative, no fractures, but he does have a badly sprained ankle. So in what has been a terrible season for him, full of setbacks and disappointments, his night has come to an end.
Janine, let's just be thankful that it wasn't worse than that, because it looked like it could have been. The way he was hit from the side, any number of things could have happened. You're right. It's been basically a wasted year for an All-American as a true freshman. His sophomore year has not turned out the way he wanted it to. Hill trying to get outside. And Hill takes it up to the 43. Got away from Xavier Brewer initially on the corner.
And you hear coaches all the time, and you know, we were talking about the depth of corner for LSU. Well, Clemson, you mentioned earlier the depth problems that they have. Brewer, a guy who typically plays safety, having to play that edge set. And that time he got frozen in space, but Brent Venables has had to rotate a ton of guys. They've had to make changes at linebacker. And this secondary with 3 guys that were expected starters out for the season has been banged up quite a bit.
They have 3 corners, and they're just hanging on by their fingernails. Mettenberger on the run. What a throw. Landry. What a throw by Mettenberger. He had bracket coverage against Landry and fit it in there.
When I put the tape in with Mettenberger, I had not seen this young man throw consistently. In the second half of the Alabama game, which is the film that I studied very closely, this guy was on fire. And a guy who on the run makes that accurate of the throw. Quandon Christian, the Sam linebacker, the strong side linebacker, is in perfect position.
Yes,
and he just throws it right over his arm.
Hill, the tailback. Keep an eye on the fullback, J.C. Copeland, 44. It's a 272-pound fullback who just missed a block on the blitzing Quandon Christian. What happens when you start telling somebody how good this guy is? He misses a block.
Well, I think Quandon Christian was upset that he didn't get a fingernail on that ball, so he decides to blitz this time, and it was the movement a little too quick, and Copeland he didn't get. You got to go inside or out on that. You've got to start on the defenders inside. If you go to the outside, it makes the rush so much easier. And both of these quarterbacks, they're getting a lot of little black pebbles on their jersey. If this were grass, they'd be green at this point.
The defensive pressure has been unrelenting on both sides. Mettenberger throws complete down to the 38-yard line. Odell Beckham Jr., the fastest receiver on this club, on a comeback route, and a good throw. It'll make it 3rd and about 7.
And what a great decision by Mettenberger. Cut this in half, because now at 3rd and 7, it looks like we'll go into the second quarter. But you're at that place where you may be in that 4-down territory anyway. So you gave yourself a chance for LSU to have a makeable 3rd. And if you don't make it, you get a few more yards. Maybe you have a makeable 4th after that.
What a terrific first 15 minutes from the Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta. We're tied at 7. Spencer Ware is the tailback. 3-man rush. Mettenberger wants the screen. Ware makes a man miss and will get the first down.
What a nice job by Zach Mettenberger. The whistles did blow, so this is not going back. But coaches talk about inventing throws, finding a place to fit the ball in. Watch Mettenberger go sidearm on this one, almost underhand. It was sitting there. You know what I think it was? I think it was because the timing, when Spencer Ware cleared, it was faster than Mettenberger was ready.
During the play, roughing the passer, defense number 3. After this is penalty from the end of the run, automatic first down.
And if we go back and look at that, I don't think he was ever on the ground. The penalty is going to be up against Beasley, number 3, but he was on another player. I don't believe he ever touched the ground.
There's the throw. Yep, they're going to call that just a bad move by Beasley. Just not smart. But the officials had blown it dead, so they're not going to review that.
No, there's no way to.
Yeah.
Where the tailback. Two tight ends in the formation, and Ware up the middle. Lowers his shoulder and powers to the 7. Stopped by safety Rashard Hall.
And that's where you saw J.C. Copeland, the fullback, the 272-pounder, show up. When you have a guy the size of Copeland, a lot of times if there's not a hole there, because he's fast enough and big enough, that time he just pushed the entire right side of the line forward so that the running back could cut back. You're not going to see much more than that type of play, I don't think, right here either.
Ware behind Copeland again. Ware hit at the line of scrimmage, dives forward for about a yard. Copeland is an interesting story because he was one of the top defensive line prospects coming out of high school. It's tough to find guys to play fullback because so many teams run spreads now.
Especially fullback, especially at the high school level.
Exactly.
But this is a guy, because of his size and his power, and remember, had that great catch and run against Alabama, so he can get out of the backfield. But this is what LSU does. If you're an LSU fan, you're either going to get a power run here or a run action pass.
3rd and 4, they need to reach the 2 for the first down. Mettenberger looks to the corner. Landry, touchdown. Great pattern by Landry. And what a throw by Mettenberger.
And Clemson was trying to get Meeks, the safety, over to play double coverage, but I don't think it mattered. Every time I see this guy run a route, watch the move, working to the outside against Gary Peters. Peters just had no chance, and the safety late getting over there. Nice throw by the quarterback. But this young man Landry, he's turned into a very impressive route runner with great hands.
Came alive in the second half of this season. 29 catches in his last 4 games coming into this one. And if he can touch it, he can catch it. LSU regains the lead at the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Lead. Jerron Brown is deep along with Ellington. Ellington will take the short kick at the 4. And doesn't make the 15. Terrific coverage on teams. Corey Thompson, a backup safety with a stop. Let's take a look back with our Chevrolet Drive recap.
Well, after the fumble and 2-play touchdown drive by LSU to start the game, Clemson came out and had a wonderful answer. Taj Boyd finds Ellington to pick up a 3rd down, and then Boyd, who's been running the ball quite a bit in this game, calls his own number, gets a good block and scores. Now let's see, after LSU goes back up 7, if Clemson has another answer.
Let's see if they have an answer for Barkevius Mingo. Ellington, maybe a yard. First man to hit him, Benny Logan, the defensive tackle. Here's Janine.
Well, Mike, you know, last year quarterback Taj Boyd was prone to getting frustrated and rattled. He spent a lot of time in the offseason working on that. And this is our 4th Clemson game this year. He looks extremely composed and collected and confident right now.
Yes, he does. He had a sensational first quarter. 4-man rush, and he is drilled as he throws. Hopkins made the catch. Sam Montgomery, number 99, had as clean a shot as you're ever going to get, and he just blew up Taj Boyd.
Sam Montgomery came clean inside once again, and a clean hit. His head was up, it was in the chest, but once again, Clemson's O-line with a flat miss.
This one comes loose from Humphreys. The question will be, was it a catch and a fumble or an incomplete pass? Now they say incomplete pass.
And Humphreys did a wonderful job. I think he caught this and was making a move when the fumble, but give Humphreys a ton of credit for hustling back and cleaning up his own fumble. There's the catch, absolutely, and that's
Lawson, who's already made some big plays.
Well, Lawson wasn't even going for the ball. His left hand when he was wrapping. Great technique, though, on the wrap, but that left hand timed it perfectly. But Humphreys with great hustle to recover that ball. What a big, big dodge that was for Clemson.
That's a tremendous break for the Tigers. And now they come out and throw to Ford. Ford is immediately hit and taken down by Jalen Collins, who was in there for Jalen Mills.
But once again, good job by Boyd. Janine was talking about the confidence of this young man. Reverted a little bit against South Carolina in that game at the end of the regular season. Watching the film, he was just missing open guys. He wasn't accurate. This is a totally different quarterback than I saw on tape against the Gamecocks.
Empty backfield as Ellington goes out, throws underneath. Hopkins makes the catch. He's got a first down. I tell you what, this is as courageous and confident as we have seen Taj Boyd all year long.
Starting to feel a little bit, and it helps when a guy like, and you've lost Sammy Watkins. Let's not forget that. If you're just tuning in, Watkins went out in the first offensive play for Clemson with a sprained ankle. But to have a guy like Hopkins snatching the ball like that, pretty good deal.
Boyd throws, flanker screen. Humphreys with tremendous speed gets it up to the 45 before the MVP of this ball club, Kevin Minter, makes the tackle.
Minter, a young man who has gotten so much better, especially in the pass game. And talking to John Chavis, he's played every meaningful snap this year except when he was injured in the second half against Florida. He's become a heck of a middle linebacker, starting to get winded a little bit.
Boyd steps up, and that pass is going to be out of bounds, intended for Hopkins, but Jalen Collins was all over him, and it was uncatchable as well.
And Chad Morris said he was going to take some shots, felt like he left some in his back pocket against South Carolina. Of course, they only ran 22 offensive snaps in the second half, so he didn't have many chances. But that there was not a good throw by Boyd. If you're going to take the shot, you've got to keep it in bounds, especially if the goal is to put a ball up in the air for Hopkins. You can't throw it out of bounds. Now I would look for Hopkins on some type of short slant.
He has been the guy they have wanted to throw to in this situation. Three-man rush, and pressure floats it in between Hopkins and Ellington. They came with a three-man rush, and it might as well have been 8, as clear as Barkevius Mingo came.
Mingo is just so athletic, and he has, this looks to me like a free rush. I think John Chavis in a three-man rush is just saying, 49, go get it. And the offensive line, for both of these offensive lines struggling, but Clemson's offensive line in particular, just letting too many guys run free.
Beckham will make a fair catch this time just inside the 20. Punt of 36 yards. LSU by 7. LSU football at the 20-yard line. Metzenberger throws, the catch made by Beckham.
But so far tonight, a Clemson defensive front that frankly we didn't expect to see. This is a team that we have covered several times this year, and they haven't been able to get consistent pressure up front. And you mentioned Goodman, a guy who is just, they've been waiting for this type of performance almost his entire career.
Jeremy Hill takes it up to about the 29-yard line, so it'll be 3rd and 1.
Well, you can't. Clemson's defense has played very well so far this evening. Of course, they got the short field on their heels, 2-play drive for a touchdown after Watkins was injured and fumbled on that first play. But you can't have a bunch of 3rd and 1s against LSU and hope that they're not going to melt the clock and try to shorten the game.
3rd and about 1.5 yards. Hill, the tailback. Looked like Metzenberger was changing either the play or the protection. They go with a running play to Hill, and he won't get there. Middle of the defense rises up again. Carrico Wright, the linebacker, got in the hole and made the stop.
Well, this is a really nice job. That was an excellent job by the nose guard, DJ Reeder, and allowed the linebacker Reeder, a big man at 6'3", 335 pounds. He moved the center over to that side, P.J. Lonergan, and there was nowhere for LSU to run. But that's what you're going to get with a Les Miles team on 3rd and 1. They're probably going to run between the tackles, so you're ready for it.
Keene, low line drive kick this time. He'll get a little bit of a bounce. It goes out at the 30, still 41 yards and no return. Clemson will try to start from its own 35-yard line. Pass protection has been a concern so far. Boyd called quarterback run. Pick up about 3. We go to Janine.
And guys, perhaps one of the reasons why their Clemson O-line has not been quite as effective is their starting right tackle, Gifford Timothy, is sitting on the bench right now with ice on his left knee. They've been rotating a couple of guys in there in his spot. One of them, number 73, Joe Gore, needed to be settled down quite a bit by Chad Morris after the last possession.
He missed a block. He's a redshirt freshman, 6'5", 275. That last carry, by the way, was by Ellington. This time, Taj Boyd throws to his tight end, Brandon Ford, again.
And up front,
Ford gets a first down.
Pardon me, up front, what they've done is they've moved Isaiah Battle up from his second string spot at left tackle, and they've taken Brandon Thomas and put him over at the right side. This is a good personnel move. Thomas, the more athletic tackle, going up against Mingo. I like this change with an injury, making the personnel adjustment by Clemson.
Boyd, quarterback keeper, gets maybe a yard. They're running those fake fly sweeps. And Eric Reed, the safety for LSU, made a great point. He says, I can't watch those. I have to keep my eye on what I'm supposed to be watching and not all the window dressing and the eye candy that they're going to throw at us. And so far, so good for LSU.
And it's funny because that's exactly what Chad Morris calls that stuff. Window dressing. I've got to fool their eyes before the snap as much as I can.
And just telling yourself you can't watch it
It means you're going to watch it.
Boyd, good protection this time, and Boyd, flag is down. Hopkins makes the catch. Going to be a penalty on top of it. Daryl Simon was trying to hang with him. Let's see if it's on Hopkins. He seemed to be protesting to the referee.
It looked to me like Hopkins' left arm got pretty extended, and I bet you that's what these officials are talking about.
During the play, holding. Defense number 24. Penalty is declined. The play results in the first down.
So they call holding if Simon is making contact and grabbing a hold before the ball comes out, and he did. Well, there it is. Yeah, that's the right call. And you know, it's funny. The offensive players, it's going to be called that way, but that last push there was certainly towards the offense, but it was Simon grabbing the jersey that actually gets called.
Ellington, boy, did he hit the hole in a hurry. Check it, not Ellington, Roderick McDowell.
And McDowell, a guy who was battling some lower leg injuries earlier in the year, and watching him on film, this guy runs with purpose. He's kind of subtle and explosive, but he's one of those guys who every step he takes, he's gaining yards, he gets his pads down. This is a nice compliment to Ellington if they can get 25 down.
Right guard Tyler Shatling, nice block. Boyd pressured. Backhands the pass, has it complete. McDowell, rather innovative way to get it to him.
Well, I'm not so sure the Clemson staff would call that innovative. I think that would be one of those, no, let's throw that one into the stands. Watch how long this ball hangs in the air. You always get a little nervous when a guy goes to do that anyway, but that was an awfully long flip that hung in the air against an SEC defense like this. I'm not so sure that Dabo Swinney wants to see his quarterback doing that too many more times.
2nd and 5. Boyd goes to the shotgun. Fake to Humphreys. Boyd very patient on the run. Kept it and got down to the 11. They need to reach about the 7.5-yard line to move the chains.
And this is a very aggressive offense to begin with, and being in a bowl game, don't be surprised if this becomes, even if they don't get it on third, a 4-down situation for Clemson. Because of the struggles they've had on defense, they've got to be thinking touchdown here, but this one feels like maybe a screen or something to see if he can't get the first and reset the downs.
Kalen Davis, number 67, is in at left guard now. So a real shakeup on the offensive line. Hopkins, touchdown. Boyd threw it at ankle level, and Hopkins went down to get it. Taj Boyd is on his game tonight.
And he threw that ball low because the corner and the safety were reacting to the move that Hopkins made. It was double coverage on that side. and Hopkins threw it low, hard, and on time. This is a different guy than I saw on film against South Carolina, that's for sure.
The ruling on the previous play was a completed pass for a touchdown. Previous play is under further review.
Well, they must be looking to see if that ball, when we watched the first replay, I didn't see that ball move at all as Hopkins was going down, but we've been talking a lot. Boy, look at that move. He is so good with his feet. Didn't look like it touched the ground there. No. Obviously, you have to have indisputable video evidence. This one should be the shot. That's touchdown. And look, I think they should review it because this is a game that feels like it's going to go back and forth, and every touchdown, obviously, a big deal. But that clearly did not touch the ground, so this call will be confirmed.
After further review, the ruling on the field is confirmed. Touchdown.
But, I was talking earlier and how impressed I am by Jarvis Landry, the young receiver for LSU. But Hopkins and Landry, these two guys remind me of each other. They are so good with their body movement and control. And man, are they good with their hands. They can really catch them.
Catanzaro had it blocked. Only his second miss of the entire year. So Clemson is still down by 1. Catanzaro had been 56 out of 57 in extra points.
Well, Kaylon Davis and the left side of that line gets pushed back. You just can't get pushed back that far. Now, the question becomes, is that a point that Clemson's going to have to chase late in this game? This game kind of has that feeling that it might be. In fact, he'll come back, but I think that guy is an out-of-the-box NFL-ready wide receiver, that's for sure.
Michael Ford is the deep man for LSU. And this one will go through the end zone. Let's take a look at tonight's GMC playbook.
Well, LSU gets caught in a coverage that is exploited as Reed comes down to cover the tight end Ford. Watch Lawston, who's the safety to that side, and Thurl Simon is thinking he's got inside help. But because Lawston is so late getting over to the middle of the field as Reed comes down to cover the tight end, that's exactly what Boyd was reading. You hear about the pre-snap read. LSU started showing what they were doing right before the snap. He knew that the safety was not going to get over there on the in-cut, and Simon has no help because Lawson's a little bit late.
And doesn't that speak to the youth in the secondary linebacker for LSU?
Absolutely. That's the rotation. You want them to be late. You come out, it looks like there's two safeties. It looks like they're going to be playing kind of a two-zone. And as they start to shift, the safeties have to know, if I've got to get across the field to help on an end, maybe I can't hide this as long as I want to.
Spencer Ware, the tailback, goes out as a flanker. Clemson shows blitz. Here they come, and Mettenberger read it perfectly and completes it for 5 yards to Cadron Boone. Here's Janine.
Well, guys, earlier in the season, the LSU passing game struggled. There were drops, receivers not running the right routes. And you know what? I'll finish after this play how they clean that up.
All right, Janine, as they go, hurry up. This one incomplete, tipped up in the air. Back to Janine.
So, guys, after their Week 6 loss to Florida, the receivers showed up one Monday, and their strength coach, Tommy Moffitt, was waiting for them. He got on them about making the most of their opportunities, and he set up a jugs machine. They have been catching literally hundreds of balls every single day since then, and their receiver, number 80, Jarvis Landry, says it has given them a whole new confidence.
And that's extra practice that is up to the players. They have to commit to do it themselves. 3rd down. Mettenberger overthrows Landry, had a step. Landry wanted a flag, he won't get it.
Well, and that was just sensational coverage by a true freshman, Travis Blanks. Blanks, a guy who has had to play some linebacker in kind of against spread teams. They see him more as a safety, and that time he was in Landry's hip pocket the entire time, and the reason the throw was off was because Landry couldn't get away from that coverage by Blanks.
Keene will punt to Humphreys. Very good 3 and out. And Keene crushes another one. Humphreys. Well, what special teams coverage by LSU. They are fast and they are down there in a heartbeat. Executives from Chick-fil-A and the Chick-fil-A Bowl presented the presidents of both universities with $100,000 scholarship checks earlier tonight. These endowed scholarship donations bring the Bowl's total over $2.1 million in endowments at 16 ACC and SEC schools. The Chick-fil-A Bowl continues to be a proud leader in supporting educational and charitable giving, with total contributions this year of over $1.4 million. And this bowl has always been one of the most generous community and educational supporters of any bowl game in the country. Ellington burst through the hole up to the 17.
If coming into this game, knowing what everyone knows about Clemson on defense, and you said in the first half that they would have 4 3-and-outs. And now, look, LSU is not an offensive juggernaut. They're a conservative team. But when they got rolling at the end and Mettenberger was tossing it around, you wouldn't have thought that.
Boyd to Ford. He's got the first down at the 22-yard line. 4 catches for Brandon Ford, the tight end.
Well, we've seen Taj Boyd enough to know this year when he gets on a hot streak, he can throw it as well as anybody in the country. Another guy who, as Ellington, has to come off and be, looks like it may be just an equipment issue.
Boyd on the keeper. Makes the first man miss and then is taken down. Barkevius Mingo went high and couldn't hold the quarterback.
But Boyd, a guy who has put in his paperwork to see what the NFL says. Of course, he's a junior, so he's eligible to come out. But when he's on a hot streak, he's as good as there in the country. The problem is he does have those moments like against South Carolina. I think this young man would be well serviced by coming back for another year under Chad Morris.
Little swing to Ellington, had him in motion. Ellington up the sideline, close to a first down. And where they marked it, it looks like he's got it. You can see the upside for Taj Boyd coming back, can't you?
You can. And when the NFL starts breaking him down, they're going to see some of the inaccurate moments he's had and missing some of the reads. But when he gets going and feeling it, and this looked to me like it was a design swing pass, and Boyd hits him quickly, and that's the second time that the running back has made a good run after the catch to pick up the first.
What a first half for Boyd. 17 out of 21. Here comes the pressure again. Boyd gets out of it. Avoided the sack and actually picks up 3 or 4 yards. But the pressure has been on all night. Agayeri, number 87, and Kevin Minter, the middle linebacker, in on the stop. Minter now has 12 tackles in the first half.
Well, when you're playing a team that likes to snap it as much as they do, as Clemson does, your middle linebacker who never comes off the field better have a few tackles.
Great point. Flanker screen, Sharon Peak. Tackled by Simon.
And it is so rare in today's game to have any linebacker who can play every snap. Because even though you're in the SEC and you're going to see more offenses that are power run teams, you still have Texas A&M, you still have a lot of people that run some spread concepts. But this guy, even on 3rd and 4 or 5 against a team like Clemson, does not come off the field.
2:26 to go in the half. Clemson showing that they're changing the play in the face of what looked like a blitz. Four men on the rush. Brandon Ford, the tight end again. Ford dragging tacklers with him to the 48-yard line. In case it comes to a field goal situation, watch both of these kickers in warm-ups. They can just crush it on this in this indoor atmosphere.
And that was all Brandon Ford right there, because that ball was thrown short and he had to make a miss.
Hopkins makes the first man miss. Hopkins still on his feet.
All right, so all the fans tuning in are thinking there's booze coming down, but if you don't know Clemson, and here goes. And there is still some players tangled. When that first flag comes out, you have to be very careful in these situations, because if one more push or punch happens, you could be looking at an ejection.
Somebody from LSU with a stiff arm Looked like number 59 pushed, and unfortunately for him, he did it right in front of the official.
Yeah, it's Jermario Roscoe, a young man who's working into the depth on the defensive line.
There are 2 fouls after the play. Personal foul, defense. Personal foul, offense. It was offset. First down.
Never liked that call.
Well, if it's equal, it's equal. You know, I don't know. Let's see what happens here. I think where it starts is because Hopkins goes to step out of bounds here. And right there, the play continued. And I think as the players came over to that side, can't see what happened really there.
First down at the LSU 38. Boyd. Humphreys in the flat. Humphreys taken out of bounds near the 35.
And
my
that,
only point on that penalty is somebody started it. You threw the flag for a reason.
yeah, but if 2 guys shove each other or go at each other about equally. But you know, we see Humphreys in there. That's a play that if Sammy Watkins is healthy and not out of the game with a lower right leg injury, that's likely number 2 for Clemson. Not Humphreys. Humphreys a good player, but of course Sammy Watkins, we know, can be one of the most explosive in the country. So a big loss for Clemson.
Ellington, the tailback. They run the option, and Boyd lost his footing and went down back at the 38-yard line. So it's going to be 3rd and long for the Clemson Tigers. Clock is running under 1:40.
And now I think if you're Clemson, you're sitting here, such a tough. You're in a strange spot here because the way your defense is played, you may get conservative, but I think you have to be thinking you still may be in that 4-down area, and because they have not been able to slow down Clemson, you may not be able to get past the sticks.
Boyd with good protection this time. Now he's flushed. Throws on the run and throws it out of bounds. Now, if they want to go for the field goal from here, it's going to be about 54 yards.
Well, and they do have, Clemson does have a long kicker in Spencer Benton, number 13, who has kicked a 61-yarder, an ACC record. But you know, you kick a long field goal here and it gets blocked. It's a huge turn of events. I think this is somewhere. I think you have to consider going for it here on 4th down, because if you punt it, LSU gets the ball back with 2 timeouts. And I think what Clemson is doing here is right, and look for pressure and maybe a fade.
Here comes the pressure, and Boyd runs right through it. He is going to be short at the 29-yard line. Boyd almost got it. And guess who was coming again? Barkevious Mingo got there before Boyd could get his feet set.
And Boyd tried to get too pretty, I think, at the end of this run. Watch when he clears the offensive line. Right there, he went to make a cut. I'm not sure. He was trying to make a big cut underneath the linebacker, Minter. But if he takes that and bounces it to the outside and races Minter to the 1st down marker, I think he gets it. I think that cut cost Boyd the 1st down. And now for LSU, still I think the right decision, though, for Clemson to go for it there on 4th down.
I do too.
Because they've been able to get so much pressure. But now for Zach Mettenberger, 2 timeouts in a minute, and the clock stops out of bounds. And with 1st downs, that's a lot of time.
Jeremy Hill is the tailback. They fake it to him. Mettenberger off his back foot. And he got it to Odell Beckham Jr. And he's down to the Clemson 44-yard line, gain of 26. Clock stops temporarily with 53 seconds. As soon as the ball is marked ready for play, the clock will be wound. It's running. Four-man rush. Mettenberger with time, throws underneath. And this may have been picked off, and it was. Travis Blanks. And now more pushing and shoving. Blanks is a guy they have had high hopes for coming out of high school. 6'1", 190, a true freshman, but they've had to use him at linebacker a lot this year and not the preferred safety spot they wanted him at. There's a marker down as well.
And that was a forced throw by Mettenberger.
Sure was. And he has not made many mistakes.
After the play, personal foul on the offensive team, number 70. 15 yards.
Oh, man, that is a huge penalty. Lyle Collins, the left guard, gets called for a 15-yard penalty. What a change of events for LSU. You get a defensive stop on 4th down, and now you get a turnover on the throw by Mettenberger, which looked like a force right from the start. Boy, that's a great read by Blanks, though. He comes from the safety spot straight downhill. Now you see why they think this young man's going to be a good player, and just not smart. Yeah, you got to let that one go. And now here's Clemson with 3 timeouts in 33 seconds. They can run a lot of offensive plays with 3 timeouts.
They can even run the ball.
Absolutely. And just make sure you call it right away, that timeout.
Pressure, and they got him again. Boyd needed to get rid of that ball. He could not afford to take a sack in that situation. Kevin Minter was coming. Got 25 seconds left in the half. Timeout on the field. Back to the Chick-fil-A Bowl after this.
Students everywhere agree LSU is a phenomenal choice. Experience the campus where passion becomes genius. Now, only at LSU.
27 seconds to go in the first half. They have put apparently 2 seconds back on the clock. And Clemson is pushed back to its own 47-yard line. 2nd and long. Pressure coming. Boyd trying to get away. Drilled as he threw. Boy, he has been knocked down at least a half a dozen times hard.
This defensive front for LSU, and frankly the defensive front for Clemson, both fronts are playing. Is there one guy on the border of, it was not late, but that was very close, and Mingo smartly not ducking his head or going to the head of Boyd. But Goodman, the defensive end for Clemson, and Mingo, the defensive end for LSU, are both putting on a little bit of display this afternoon, this evening.
Taj Boyd's going to go into the locker room feeling like he's already played 3 games. Pressure coming again, and they got him again.
And if I'm LSU, I'd think about a timeout on 4th down. Why not make Clemson at least take the snap? Well, that took too long. You lost 5 seconds, and it's a little thing, but here it is, 4th down for Clemson. Make them do something.
Sure.
9 seconds left, and Coach Miles got the timeout, but it was about 5 or 6 seconds that went away. And if Clemson has to punt the ball, you've already mentioned that Odell Beckham's been a really good punt returner. He had the touchdown punt return against Arkansas, but you could also get a block and a return for a touchdown. So I want to save a little more of that clock, I think.
The last sack, by the way, went to safety Micah Eugene. Capital One Bowl Week concludes on New Year's Day. 4 great games on 4 different networks. A pair of games at noon, the TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl on ESPN2, the Heart of Dallas Bowl on ESPNU, then a pair of games at 1, the Capital One Bowl on ABC, and the Outback Bowl on ESPN. That'll be South Carolina against Michigan.
You get a chance, if you have not seen Jadeveon Clowney for South Carolina, who lit up Clemson for 4.5 sacks in their last regular season game, and put on the film, and I'm surprised he didn't have more.
Everybody we talk to, as Boyd is going to air it out, and why not?
That was a smart play. But
everybody we talk to from any team that we see, somebody mentioned Jadeveon Clowney and said he is the best player in the country. That's the end of the half. 14-13, a 1-point game on a block.
To, let's say they get to 108. I don't care how good LSU's defense is. That's going to wear them out after a while.
And this is the only time Clemson has been behind at the half this year. Michael Ford on the return. Still on his feet across the 40 out to the 43. One of the differences in this game has been special teams so far. Let's go to Janine.
Well, guys, I caught up with Clemson coach Dabo Swinney, who told me he is very proud of the way that his team overcame adversity early. He said that was their biggest challenge in the game, was that early fumble and turnover and then the quick score by LSU. The one thing they do need to clean up, though, is execution on the offensive line. Right tackle Gifford Timothy is out. As you know, Sammy Watkins is out, but he did say, guys, 2000 team, what will your legacy be?
Well, it's all up to the second half. This is Hill straight up the middle. Hill in a foot race. 57 yards for a touchdown. The guy shaking his head was defensive coordinator Brent Venables. He's got to be wondering how the middle was that wide open.
Well, they lined up in an odd front in the center. Lonergan made a really nice block on the nose guard. Watch this block. If you're going to run in the middle and your center's going to block one-on-one, he's got to lock him up, and that was a very nice job. Grady Jarrett went to the right, then came back to the left, then Lonergan buried him, and then Rashard Hall, the safety, he's the last stop. He's got to make that tackle.
Spencer Shuey, the middle linebacker, looked like he took a bad angle and then got caught up inside in the wash. And once he did that, there was nobody.
If you're going to play that true nose guard defense like Clemson did on that one, the center's got to get his block, and it was the senior P.J. Lonergan for LSU who did a wonderful job. You don't have to dominate the guy. You just have to kind of swallow him up. And, of course, you see the speed of Hill, a big guy at 235 pounds. The acceleration, once he made the safety miss, that's pretty special.
LSU has mastered the quick start. They got their first score 55 seconds into the game. They get this score 17 seconds into the second half.
And this is the thing that Clemson last year, especially at the end of the year, they were having the hardest time answering when things went wrong. Of course, things went very wrong in the Orange Bowl against West Virginia last year. Well, actually this year, because it was 2012. It was in January. But they gave up 70 points. And this is a much different team. But now that LSU punches them again with their run game, let's see if they have another answer.
Brown and Ellington are deep for Hairston's kickoff. Ellington 2 yards deep. Kick coverage has been tremendous for LSU, and it is again. LSU always seems to have sensational special teams. You got to tip your cap to Taj Boyd. He has been under relentless pressure. He's been pounded into the ground several times and has hung in there and thrown it great.
And, you know, you listen to Les Miles going off, talking to Janine, saying, no, we're getting pressure. But this is a totally different guy. And he's got, than last year, he was up to 240 pounds. He's got good feet. And I think Les Miles, maybe one of the things they talk about with their defensive line at halftime is not slow down, but just a little more under control. This guy may be a little more slippery than they suspected.
Ellington. You can slow him down a little bit if Ellington can get some yardage on the ground, but apparently nothing slows down Kevin Minter, the middle linebacker. He's on his way to a 20-plus tackle game.
Guy who has really come into his own. They were talking about how he played kind of flat-footed. He's got to make a ton of calls from that middle linebacker spot, but he's come on.
Boyd, quarterback draw. Slipped one tackle, but Sam Montgomery got him after Benny Logan missed. Montgomery, one of those bookend defensive ends, may go in the draft this year. Mingo may go in the draft this year. Montgomery looked at Mingo and said, I'm going when he's going.
Montgomery was a guy who's banged up, so nice to get those bookends back in this game.
Boyd hangs in the pocket down the middle, incomplete, intended for Hopkins, and Lamine Barrow, the linebacker, was there to knock it down.
You know, we were talking about finishing blocks earlier. There's also finishing plays. Watch Barrow get his left hand, because this is a catch right there, and just barely knock the right arm of Hopkins away from this ball. That's a nice play by a linebacker on a guy, Hopkins, who's having a huge day. Was able to knock that ball away.
Beckham makes the fair catch at the 32. Another beautiful kick, 50 yards. The LSU fans loved what they've seen at the start of this half with Hill going 57. And 45 yards. The other 5 drives, they only came up with 31 total yards. Michael Ford, the tailback on this series. Ford on the toss. No place to go. Clemson did a nice job. Corey Crawford, the defensive end, wasn't fooled at all. And then Jonathan Meeks, the safety, came up to get in on the tackle.
Now, this is what LSU's offense is built to do. They have a bunch of backs, of course. They lost Alfred Blue earlier in the year to a knee injury at running back, but Ford is kind of the speed guy. Jeremy Hill, of course, the freshman who didn't play much earlier in the year, burst on the scene with some huge games, 107 against Alabama. But now you change it up again with Spencer Ware, so they have a lot of depth at running back, and this is what they're built to do.
Mettenberger, another sidearm shot that's complete for about 5. Catch made by Spencer Ware out of the backfield, and then he was slammed to the turf on his back.
Yeah,
when
he got tackled, his leg got caught up underneath of him as the defender pulled him down from behind. That's one of the reasons that they've outlawed the horse collar when they pull someone down, because a lot of times the defender will land on the back of the leg, and that's exactly what happened there as Josh Watson landed on the left leg of Ware.
Even though all he did was have the jersey, it was not a horse collar. But it's the same technique. Pressure coming. Mettenberger throws to Landry, and Landry will have a first down across the 46-yard line. Well, this kid's money in the bank, isn't he?
You know, and when we were talking to Steve Cragthorpe, who's the quarterback coach here at LSU, about the progress of Mettenberger, you know, they needed some of these young receivers to start making plays and feeling comfortable. And, of course, there was the huge catch by Cadron Boone against Texas A&M at the end of the half. They were down 12-7, and that's the play where Cragthorpe felt like our guy's starting to get some confidence in his receivers, and he's got a lot of confidence in Landry.
Hill across midfield to the 48-yard line. Going back to Landry for a second, he says he loves to be in the slot because the slot receiver is a yard back off of the line of scrimmage. It's really hard to jam him, so he gets a lot of free releases, and he said he gives him a better look at the defense too.
He has so much body control, and he's so good at his routes with great hands. That is a great spot for him.
Mettenberger wants it all. Incomplete off of Boone's fingertips. Dove at the 5 and couldn't quite bring it in.
Well, Mettenberger had exactly what he wanted, but a little bit of pressure was coming by Grady Jarrett. And that's the safe. There is no safety help by Meeks. That's one-on-one with Xavier Brewer. Just missed it.
You're not going to get many of those.
And it's hard to fault the quarterback. Sometimes you say, underthrow that a little bit, but that ball was a throw it over the top from the start because his receiver had a big step.
It was 3 inches from being perfect. Kenny Hilliard is in at tailback. They'll throw instead. That looked like contact before the ball got there. It was intended for James Wright, and it looked like Gary Peters, the corner, got there before the ball did.
And officials are taught, if it's what they term bang, bang, ball defender, they're not going to call it. The only thing you could potentially call here was that left arm, but because of where the official is standing who has that call, he doesn't necessarily see that, and I do not think that was pass interference. I think that was a good no call.
Jamie Keane to punt. He's in for Brad Wing, his fellow Australian who's suspended, and there's the punt. That's the
Yeah, and that's what Les Miles was saying. He's a very talented young guy, but he'd only punted one time earlier in the year when Wing was out with a leg injury. Now he's suspended. And
cards the other night. Clemson takes over at its own 30. Boyd, here comes pressure again. Ball's loose, but it bounced right back to Taj Boyd. Pressure has been relentless. Taj Jones with the pressure on Taj Boyd.
And Taj Jones, who has been out of commission for a while, back in for the bowl game, and just nobody's blocking. You know, these offensive lines have struggled with guys running free, both of them. It's bad enough that occasionally they're getting beat with some good play by some defensive ends, but there's just a lot of free bodies.
Boyd, pressure coming again. This is Montgomery. And Boyd, all he can do is throw it away. It has been relentless. It's either been Mingo or Montgomery or one of the linebackers. Taj Boyd's going to see these guys in his sleep.
And John Chavis, the defensive coordinator, has done so much today with his defensive line and moving them around. I think what he saw was an offensive line for Clemson that I think is a pretty good group, but maybe he saw, we talked about that athleticism issue, but the way that LSU's been able to move up front has been really hard on Clemson.
And the injury to Gifford Timothy hasn't helped either. Boyd again, running for his life, and goes down at the 25.
And Boyd a little slow to get up as he was hit by Ronald Martin, but that one he's got to run parallel to the line of scrimmage. On third and that far, he's got to run sideways and keep his eyes downfield. He had Adam Humphries working down the field, and when Taj Boyd went to take off, the LSU defense was all around. He's got to look downfield a little longer on that.
The last 8 Clemson passes, they are 0 for 5 with 3 sacks. The last 8 dropbacks. LSU will have the ball when we come back. LSU already up 21-13, third quarter.
Have to meet and check them out and see what they did in the ball game.
Hilliard is the tailback. They have used 4 guys at that spot tonight, all getting significant carries, and Hilliard up near the 40, gain of almost 5 on first down. LSU has had no trouble with the ACC. They've beaten ACC teams 19 straight, 6-0 in bowl games.
Well, there is one thing you can say about Les Miles into the season. They have been on a nice run. Of course, they lost the national championship game last year, but a nice run in the postseason under Les Miles.
And really a heartbeat away from being in it this year. Hilliard again spun down after a gain of 3. Keep in mind, Les Miles has had 11 win seasons 5 times in his first 7 years. 5 11-win seasons, and if he wins tonight, it'll be another one. That's remarkable.
And when you sit down and you study this team and you look at their depth chart, the scary part is they're going to be scary good next year. The amount of young players they have at every position have been able to build up some depth. Especially on the right side of this offensive line, 2 freshmen.
Spot the ball at the 42.5. They need to reach the 45 for a first down. And now they'll take a timeout.
Timeout. LSU. 30-second timeout.
The Discover Orange Bowl will be on ESPN New Year's Day. That's tomorrow. As number 15 Northern Illinois goes up against number 12 Florida State. The Discover Orange Bowl tomorrow night at 8:30 on ESPN, as well as live on the Watch ESPN app and ESPN Radio.
And I really liked what Jordan Lynch came out last week and said he didn't guarantee that they could beat Florida State, but he said, you know what, if you have not seen Jordan Lynch play, he's very good player. Now he's going up against some good ones, but remember, Florida State down a little bit on their defensive line with some injuries. Bjorn Werner, obviously a sensational one, but Lynch came out and said, we're going to go out there and punch him around a little bit and see what happens.
Why do you poke them with a stick?
I like it. Why not?
LSU trying to keep the drive alive. Mettenberger after the play fake. He's been under pressure as well as Taj Boyd had. Trying to get it himself, felt it out of bounds right at the stick. Let's see where they mark it. They'll stop it at the 44. It looked like he got closer.
Well, and we had a penalty on Eric Reed for targeting earlier in the game, and this right there needs to be targeting by number 46, Jonathan Willard. The quarterback is down. You can see the head drop and the launch. See him leave his feet. See Willard leave his feet. This should have been a 15-yard penalty and first down for LSU. If you're going to call it one way, you've got to call it the other.
Keel, very high kick. Humphreys will make the fair catch at the 20-yard line. The Rose Bowl on ESPN New Year's Day. Senior running back Monte Ball leads Wisconsin against stout Stanford, number 6 in the country and the granddaddy of them all. The Rose Bowl game presented by Vizio. Coverage starts tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern on ESPN and also live on the Watch ESPN app.
If I were Chad Morris on this drive, I think I might want to try some just inside power run plays. The way this defensive line for LSU has been moving around and as quick as they played, I want to see maybe a couple runs right at him, see if we can't slow him down.
Ellington will try just that. Goes off tackle. Lost the ball. Still loose. Clemson says they have it, and they do. LSU, excuse me. Ellington coughed it up. Looked like Eric Reed got it back. The All-American safety exactly where he's supposed to be.
LSU has given up some yards this year, especially in the secondary. But the one thing that they have done time and time again is cause fumbles. That was Sam Montgomery who came in there. And frankly, that ball should not come out. A senior running back. It wasn't much of a hit. Not taking anything away from Montgomery, but for LSU, this has been the story all season long. Have they been so good about getting the ball out? And that is a fumble.
Ruling on the previous play was a fumble recovered by the defense.
But see his left knee go down, but it looked like the ball was
yeah, it sure did. And again, not taking anything away, good hustle by Sam Montgomery, but yeah, that ball is out. But that should not cause a fumble. When that ball's up against your body in traffic like that, there's just no way that you expect a senior running back to fumble. But again, this is LSU defense. They've been one of the best in the country all year at forcing them, so not surprised at all. And I would assume that they're going to confirm
After
this.
further review, ruling on the field is confirmed. Fumble recovered by LSU.
What a huge, huge mistake. And your defense has been playing, if you're Clemson, has been playing so well. Now, remember earlier in the game, you had the fumble inside your 15, inside your 20. 2 plays later, touchdown for LSU. So let's see how quickly or if LSU can turn this into 6 and then 7 with the PAT.
Last 5 games, LSU has produced nearly 13 points a game off of turnovers. Jeremy Hill already had a 57-yard run to start the third quarter. Takes it down to the 25-yard line.
And what a killer for Clemson. LSU's defense looked like they were starting to take over a little bit there here in the second half, and then you come out and you start to get a drive going. You're only down 8 and you fumble on your side of the field.
The other thing it does, it forces your defense to go back out there.
And I think they will. They played well. But this is not a deep group for Clemson, and the way LSU likes to run it, they can start wearing them down.
Hill again takes it off the left side. Hill inside the 10 for the first down.
One of the guys that had to step up this year was Trey Turner when Josh Williford went down with a concussion. Big number 56, a redshirt freshman came in, and he's got the nickname of the Bull. Watch the Bull pull around and just mash Shuey, the middle linebacker. But this number 56, when you watch the film, this is a explosive, powerful young man. He's the fastest offensive lineman at LSU, has lost some 50 pounds since he got here. This guy has a very bright future.
Not only as far as technique and everything else you want in a lineman, he's got an attitude too, doesn't he?
He's awfully tough.
Hill has 118 yards rushing. He's going to add a couple to it here.
Well, if you've got a guy like Turner who can pull and blow people up, you might as well keep going back to him. Now this one isn't quite as nice as the play before, but watch him pull around and just swallow Shuey, the middle linebacker. You just don't have a chance And there's that nastiness.
Yeah.
Finishing the block, because if the running back comes off and you're not finishing, your guy's going to make the tackle.
Play to the end of the whistle.
Actually, yeah, some guys say the echo. Yeah.
Mettenberger, screen. Down to the 3, Travis Dixon. The tight end on the screen, Rashard Hall, made the tackle.
But, you know, not surprising that Les Miles, a former offensive line coach and offensive lineman from Michigan, is very proud of what this offensive line has done. Lost 3 starters. Josh Williford, left tackle. Chris Falk, who's a likely high NFL draft pick. Right tackle Alex Hurst. So Vidal Alexander comes in, a true freshman at right tackle. And Trey Turner, I think they have found a future All-American at that right guard spot.
One of the veterans of this group, Josh DeRosset, the left tackle, has been instrumental in their success. They'll throw for it, incomplete, tried to get it to Landry. Excellent play by Gary Peters.
And I think you got to kick the field goal here. The way this game is going back and forth. You're up 8, go up 11, so now you're up 2 scores plus a 2-point conversion. That's pretty good defense.
Yes,
that's pretty good defense right there. And Peters, a guy who is in there because of a lot of the injuries Clemson has had. That was a nice play on the ball.
Drew Alamo will try from 20 yards out. He's 20 of 28 this year. LSU extends its lead.
And for Clemson, they have to feel like that was a big win. To get 3 points instead of 7 after a turnover inside the 30 is a good deal if you're Clemson.
Capital One Bowl Week concludes on New Year's Day. 4 great games, 4 networks. A pair of games at noon. The TaxSlayer.com Gator Bowl on ESPN2. The Heart of Dallas Bowl on ESPNU. Then a pair of games at 1. The Capital One Bowl on ABC. And then the Outback Bowl on ESPN featuring number 10 South Carolina, number 18 Michigan. South Carolina, another one of those teams that was a couple of heartbeats away from being in a national championship consideration.
And you think about losing Marcus Lattimore again this year and going back and forth with the quarterbacks. Steve Spurrier just did a fantastic job at South Carolina.
Didn't he ever? Well, this could be a critical possession for Clemson. They're down by 11 with 4:49 to go in the 3rd quarter. And they haven't done anything here in the 2nd half. Brown and Ellington are deep. Hairston's last couple of kickoffs have been returnable. Got more of this one. Ellington 5 yards deep, and he'll take a knee.
Well, if Clemson wants to get anything going offensively, they're going to have to start slowing down this front. You know, Chad Morris is the offensive coordinator for Clemson, has talked about giving his offensive line help. I'm just not sure what other things you can do. They are so powerful, athletic, fast. I mean, all the things you kind of know, but then the thing that they do as well as anybody in the country, then you finally think, okay, we got the ball back, we're down 8, and then they force a fumble. But luckily for Clemson, their defense held LSU to 3. But I'm with you, Mike. I think this is a big drive.
LSU, or Clemson rather, in this quarter, 5 yards on offense. This ought to help. They'll get 5 more on the flanker screen to Adam Humphries, and here's Janine.
Well, Mike and Ed, one thing the Clemson offense is going to have to contend with is LSU's defensive line coach, Brick Haley, has been telling his line they're going to have to pick it up and start pressing more. He wants them to take up some slack for Barkevious Mingo, who's going to be resting some spells. He's got a wrapped right hand, and Haley said to Mingo, I'm going to give you some spells because I'm going to need you at the end of this game. He's on the field now, but you will see him getting some rest, Graves.
All right, thanks, Janine. And Brandon Ford had his leg bent under him as he made the catch, and there is the hand of Barkevious Mingo, who had 8.5 sacks a year ago, came into this game with only 4. His number's really down, but he's picked it up late in the season and certainly picked it up in this game. It is the first down for the Tigers. Boyd, quarterback keeper. He'll get 8. Boy, he has been the Clemson offense tonight.
Now you lose Sammy Watkins in that first series, and DeAndre Hopkins, of course, has had a terrific game, but they have definitely put a lot on this young man's shoulders, and we've seen it late in games, and we have I believe that's the left tackle Isaiah Battle, the true freshman who had to come in because of the injury to Gifford Timothy.
False start, offense, number 78. 5-yard penalty, the down remains, second.
But we've seen games with Taj Boyd where you can start to see a little bit of the wear and tear on him at the end of a ball game. And there have been times where they continue to run him. And it is a big part of their offense. That's what Clemson does. But you've got to think if he has to be this much every time he's running free, you have guys like Mingo and Minter and Reed trying to come downhill and tackle the quarterback. That starts to add up.
Boyd has taken a lot of hits tonight. Flanker reverse, and it's Jerron Brown taken down across the 47-yard line. Now they'll mark it back at the 46.
You know, and this is a place where Chad Morris has been saying he wanted to take some shots. 3rd and 3.5, 4. This might be one of those chances.
I'm sorry, 41, not 46.
That looks like a gimme by LeVar Edwards for LSU, jumping off sides.
Edwards trying to anticipate the snap.
Well, and you know, that's one thing we saw with the anticipation of the snap earlier, where Mingo was getting off on the snap. And I would bet that Clemson, because a lot of times a center will get into a rhythm as soon as he brings his head up and goes down, and a guy like Mingo, who's seen it a million times, can go. And I bet you that Clemson has slowed that down and changed the rhythm.
Ellington, who fumbled on the last possession, will gain about a yard. Lamine Barrow made the tackle.
And look how fast Clemson is now going, because LSU trying to get some people on and off the field.
They like to rotate 8-9 defensive linemen. Flag is down. Preliminary signal against Clemson.
False start, offense, number 16. 5-yard penalty, the down remains, first.
That's Adam Humphreys.
Yeah, he was lined up to the left of the offensive formation and moved before the snap.
It's really inexcusable for a wide receiver.
Yeah, you're looking in.
Do that.
Yeah, you're typically looking in at the ball. But you don't need to go backwards the way this defensive front has played, especially here in the second half.
No, you don't need to give them long yardage situations, because they will totally ignore the run and just come after the quarterback.
And that was the problem against South Carolina for Clemson in that second half, is Jadeveon Clowney and his teammates.
Please reset the clock to 2:20, 2:20. The clock did not start on time.
But that was the problem for Clemson in the second half against South Carolina, and they were just not able to get any help at all for that offensive line.
2nd and 14 for Boyd, who will go into the pistol with Ellington behind him. Pressure comes. Boyd goes down again, chased down by Benny Logan. The big defensive tackle, 295 pounds, showing you some foot speed, being able to chase down a quarterback.
Watch the exchange of the defensive lineman and the linebacker coming to the outside. Once again, it's movement to that side, and that's the right tackle, Brandon Thomas, who did not see his responsibility, which was the blitzing linebacker, until it was too late.
3rd and 13. Boyd unloads in a hurry, throws underneath, intended for Hopkins, but Eric Reed was right there.
That was just spectacular coverage, spectacular technique. And remember earlier, Reed was called for targeting where he dropped his head. Watch how well he keeps his head up and wraps up that time. Just a great physical tackle by Reed, a guy, another one of those juniors who, you know, a lot of people around Baton Rouge wondering, are we going to see him for the Tigers next year or moving on?
Whistles will kill this play as the officials threw a flag.
False start, offense, number 5. 5-yard penalty. The down remains 4. Clock will start on the snap.
You take a look at stats before games and you have expectations of what teams are going to do offensively and defensively. And here is what the LSU defense and the Clemson offense numbers have been able to put up. A little surprising, although now in the third quarter it has been more like what you might have expected. Odell Beckham Jr. taken down at the 10. Loss of 1 on the return. Spencer Shuey, the starting middle linebacker, down on special teams. Our aerial coverage provided by Goodyear. Everything Goodyear has learned making tires that go the distance inspires what they roll into yours. Goodyear, more driven. Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta. LSU backed up at the 11-yard line. 1:21 to go, third quarter. Jeremy Hill will pick up 2.5, maybe 3 yards.
I'm not sure that Jeremy Hill knew exactly where that hole was being set up, because he got the ball and almost like he was going to go left, but the pullers were coming around to the right. Remember, this is just a true freshman, so he gets crossed up occasionally, not surprised.
Hill was not used early in the season. He was actually 4th or 5th on the depth chart before an injury to Alfred Blue, and then some fair to middling performances by other guys. Then had a 3-game burst. He was one of the best backs in the country. May have worn down a little bit with all the carries he got in those. Wright, trying to come out of his break, slipped and fell, and the pass was wide of him.
You know, one of the things when we were visiting with Zach Mettenberger, you know, you talked about the run game, how that got going kind of in that midseason, but it was the passing game at the end of the year that was really what carried LSU on offense. But here's where a guy like Mettenberger pays off. If you're going to play this type of offense, you're going to have some 3rd and 7s where you need your quarterback, your pocket quarterback, to make a throw. So let's see, for the step forward to 2013, kind of a key spot.
Empty backfield as Ware goes in motion. Clemson coming on the blitz. They don't get there. The pass was thrown high.
Big mistake.
Intended for Wright, and Rashard Hall was right there anyway.
Yeah, and Xavier Brewer just made a huge mistake on that play.
Offside, defense number 9. 5-yard penalty, repeat third down.
Brewer comes from that corner spot to blitz. He crosses over, so now instead of 4th down for LSU, they're going to have 3rd and 2.
And we have seen throughout the year, having seen Clemson several times, how good Brewer has been on that corner blitz.
You know, it's the same thing you were saying about a receiver going in motion. When that guy's coming from corner, he's just got to stay on his side of the line until it's snapped. You're getting the speed movement kind of sideways, and then you just have to plant and go. But now, don't be surprised if the LSU is just between tackles. That's just what they do on this down and distance.
Much more manageable at 3rd and 2. Hill right up the gut, and he's going to be short. And it was Brewer coming off the corner again.
And, you know, a lot of people, when they watch LSU, they say, wow, what a conservative offense they run. And they do. And sometimes for their fans, it's pretty maddening. Last year in the national championship game, it was, in my opinion, overly conservative. The last drive against Alabama this year, incredibly conservative. So, but for LSU fans, that's what they're used to. It's going to be between the tackles on 3rd down. And for Clemson, which no one expected, including us, they've been able to win those short yardage battles on their defensive front.
That's the end of the 3rd quarter. LSU came to be able to play for a national championship again.
Well, they would have had to have gone through Georgia in the SEC championship, but that game played here, and LSU tends to play pretty well in this building.
Humphrey signals for the fair catch, makes it to 28 after a 50-yard punt. Here's Janine.
Well, Mike, Clemson offensive coordinator Chad Morris told his offense when they came off after their last possession, guys, they're getting us now. We've got to keep battling. Give it some time. Hopefully we can get things going again. And then Dabo Sweeney came over and said, hey, This is a 4-quarter game. Hang in there. And one guy who needs to hang in there for them is quarterback Taj Boyd. He looked like he was in pain, guys. He's getting beat up pretty good.
Giannini's carried the ball 20 times tonight, been sacked a couple of times, hit several times after he threw. He is just getting hammered. This time they'll give it to McDowell, and McDowell has a good run. He'll pick up 5, 6, 7 yards.
I really like Roderick McDowell, guy who was not healthy in the middle part of the season. A junior, you're losing the senior in Ellington, but this guy, he just has that ability. And unfortunately for LSU, that's Jalen Mills down again.
He was hurt in the first half.
Yeah, he was down earlier in the ball game.
They have marked Roderick's run back to a gain of 4 yards as he went out of bounds.
You know, we said right at the top of the show, there's a lot of people in this part of the country who say not a very good long-term policy to have an offense that adds a quarterback run element to the pounding that you would take if you had to play against an SEC front in the passing game. And Taj Boyd's afternoon, the numbers he's put up with this type of pressure, because those aren't rare instances. He's been running that much about every second or third time he drops back. To put up the numbers he's put up has just been unbelievable.
I don't know about you. This is the best game I've ever seen him play.
Yeah, but he starts to wear down, and we've seen it in games this year. This being the 4th time that we've been selected to cover one of their games, but we've seen it. He gets beat down a little bit as the game goes on, and this is a little different defense than he's seen this season in the ACC.
Flanker screen this time. They'll get it out to Humphreys, and Humphreys has yet to be able to use all of that speed that he possesses. Remember, they are playing without one of their great weapons. Sammy Watkins hurt on the first possession of the ball game. He is now on crutches in the sideline.
And now Humphreys,
in fact, has caught 6 passes. His long gained 6 yards. Now he looks like he's hurt.
Yeah, he does. Looks a little gimpy.
Going to be 3rd and a yard. Clemson really needs to keep the ball. So they'll go to Boyd, and Boyd will have the first down, it appears, as Kevin Minter drills him at the 39.5-yard line. That's enough for a first down.
And I get it. You having a quarterback run game is very helpful, but after a while you start getting into the 4th quarter, and there's a look at Sammy Watkins and one of the huge weapons that Clemson's missing. But I just think sometimes I'm not sure how many more of these hits I want my quarterback taking. Give it to Ellington or Humphreys.
Good protection this time. Then Boyd takes off. Down he goes again. Well, they're just relentless, aren't they, Josh? Downs got him that time.
And this is an offensive front that I think's been a pretty good front. This was coverage, though. That was just excellent job. That time, John Chavis, defensive coordinator, just using that front 4 to rush, and they had everybody covered up.
Boyd straight to Hopkins. What a throw.
Well, and it looks like another defender, Lamine Barrow, may be down as Eric Reed came over from his free safety spot and made a touchdown saving tackle. He may have run into Barrow. Nice move to the inside, ball thrown at very good coverage, but you could see Reed coming in to make the hit, and his shoulder pads go right into the midsection of Barrow. You see that so often when a defender's coming in, it's one of his own players that he ends up hurting.
Reed is a kid who grew up 15 minutes from campus at LSU. He was always determined to go there. His father had been a 3-time All-American track star, but his parents wanted him to expand his horizons. They'd said, if you end up deciding to go to LSU, that's just fine, but you're going to visit other schools and find out what other people have to offer you in terms of the value of your education, a different atmosphere. Well, he's at LSU. They weren't going to change his mind, but you got to give him a lot of credit for trying to expand his horizons.
Well, and they're free trips, too. You don't
Good
have to
point.
say yes to anyone until you take all 5 trips. Why not?
Well said by somebody who I'm sure took every free trip there was, right?
Yeah, not a bad deal. And it's good food, too. They wine and dine you. It's a nice, why not? But what a nice place for a defensive player to end up. If you have aspirations to play at the next level and you want to be coached up, we've talked about John Chavis, the defensive coordinator for LSU. One of my favorite nicknames in the business, Chief. And you look at what the Chief has been able to do since he got here in 2009. And this goes way back. I mean, you go to when Will Muschamp was here, Bo Pelini was a defensive coordinator here, but and give Les Miles the plan that he has put together, and the amount of young men that they are able to recruit that can play at the high level to play defense. It's a pretty good place to end up no matter where you take your other trips.
They do get some guys who can play. McDowell on the toss. Gets the corner. McDowell down to the 37-yard line.
Now the Clemson faithful wanted Jalen Mills to be called for a late hit, but he pulled up. He pulled up right there at the end. But this is the run game. If I'm Clemson, this is the run game I've got to have. You know, you've got to get McDowell and Ellington going. I'm not sure how much more I want to run Boyd.
Good protection this time. Now Boyd can't find anybody. Shovels it out to his tight end, Ford. And Ford down to the 28. That's the second time that Taj Boyd has gone Brett Favre on everybody and just found a way to get it out.
He's got such gifted feet. Andre Ware, who's calling the radio game for us, obviously a quarterback. I was talking to him at halftime, and he said, man, this guy has gifted feet. And you saw it there. Just the ability to dance around and buy some time.
It's a big, big drive here. McDowell.
Good run.
Student body left, and he just won't go down. Powers his way to the 25-yard line. You're not supposed to be able to do this against LSU.
And down 11 here. You're kind of, this is unusual for Clemson to take this much time to get their offensive plays going. Down 11, you got to figure LSU is going to try to shorten the clock. So are you going to run out of time if you're Clemson?
They're down 2 scores. Here comes pressure. They pick it up. Boyd throws too high. Really the first bad throw, and Simon nearly had the pick.
And Boyd is looking over to the sideline. I think he expected Jerron Brown to continue on his route.
I do too.
Yeah, the way he threw this, I think he expected the receiver 18 right there to the right to continue his route. But even if he continues it, that's tough throw there. That one got away from him. The ball will sail a little bit. And now if you're Clemson, you don't get it here, you got to start thinking about a field goal. I don't think this is 4 down.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Boyd with time throws too high to Hopkins. Hopkins wanted a flag, and he gets one. They're going to call Jalen Collins for either holding or interference.
What a big first down this will be for Clemson. At first blush, it looked like potentially this was an uncatchable ball, but I think Collins may have altered the route so much that the receiver Hopkins was not able to get over there and make the play.
Yeah, I'm not really big on that uncatchable ball call. It usually means you were held so badly
you couldn't get to it.
Couldn't get to a catchable ball.
Defense number 32.
It is Jalen Collins.
But as Hopkins fights to the inside on Collins, whoa, that's not PI. I don't see PI. You can have that left arm there. That left arm is fine. If you turn him, they'll call it. That's not pass interference on LSU.
McDowell inside the 10 to the 8.
I like that they're starting to lean on McDowell. I think that I watched this, especially the second half against the first half against South Carolina. And I think that they have a young man in McDowell that is a really good inside runner, taking nothing away from Ellington. But this is the guy I think they need in the ball game here in the fourth quarter.
Dabo Swinney said, we're a top 15 team. We want to be top 10 consistently. We got to win games like this. Boyd, quarterback draw, stumbled and went down.
You know, that was a run-pass option there, and I think Boyd got a little confused with what he wanted to do. This is one of those new parts of these spread offenses where you'll see a quarterback reading if he's going to hand it to someone to run, can run it himself or throw it. There was 3 guys in routes, and Boyd got stuck in the middle. And now here you are with a 3rd and long with goal to go.
3rd and goal. 12th play of the drive coming. Boyd under pressure. He can keep it. Lost his footing and went down at the 8. He was trying to cut back inside where the middle of the field was open. I don't know if he could have scored, but it would have been interesting, and now they will send on the field goal.
And the story of this defense has been, or this game has been, the defensive front. Chauncey Agayeri that time just was in the backfield before anything happened, and now down 11. Clemson doesn't have a choice. If you're 4th and 1, 2, maybe you go for it. But here I think you got to kick it.
Catanzaro, one of the best kickers in the country, from 26 yards out, makes it 24-16, and Clemson is closed to within 1 score. Waits 5 yards deep in the end zone. Benton, another good kick. Ford's going to bring this one out. Runs into his own man. May have helped. 30, 40, 48-yard line. Special teams have certainly made a difference in field position tonight.
And the return game for LSU on the second half of the season has been the reason they've won some of the games down the stretch. 40 young man who's had some big returns that helped a sluggish offense, and this time does the same thing, because LSU offensively, LSU has been averaging only 3.4 plays per offensive series. They do that again here.
Where? Well, right now, they're only about 20 yards away from field goal range. That would make it a 2-score game again.
But for LSU, offensively, they've only been averaging 3.4 plays, 6 3-and-outs by Clemson defensively. And the way Clemson drove the ball, we mentioned how long of a drive that was. If LSU can't get a little something going here, I think that LSU defense is starting to get a little tuckered out. They have defended with 8:40 to go in the 4th, 80 plays on defense for LSU. So I think this offense needs to keep the ball for a minute.
2nd and 7 for Mettenberger. 4-man rush, nobody gets there. Ware out in the flat, and Xavier Brewer was on him as soon as he got the ball. Beautifully defended by Clemson.
And if I am Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator, I'm finding out where Jarvis Landry is lining up, number 80 for LSU. And I'm making sure that whoever's covering number 80 has some help, and he knows where that help is.
I was going to say, the 2 guys that are covering,
yes,
perhaps?
Yes. And look, Odell Beckham's come and had a nice season, but number 80 is the guy that LSU typically looks at in this situation. Right here in your slot.
Landry, 4 catches, 37 yards tonight. Mettenberger under pressure, and they got him. Malachi Goodman and Grady Jarrett. And Goodman having the game of his life as Clemson has come up with sack number 6 on the night.
Well, once again, it's the inside move that these young offensive linemen have had just so much trouble with. That time, it was a defensive end nose guard stunt. Jarrett was the nose guard replacing Goodman. Goodman got there in a hurry, but every time it seems Venables or Chavis dials that up on either side, it seems to work.
Malachi Goodman had 4 sacks in 12 games coming into this game. He has 3.5 tonight. He has virtually matched his season total with an exceptional performance for the Clemson Tigers. Now they have the ball back, down by 1 score.
of Mettenberger, but they had exactly what they wanted to Landry in the slot.
Only 7:08 left in the game. Boyd, little swing pass. That's not going to get much. Loston comes up from his safety spot.
And this defense, they had a long set of plays they had to defend on the last one. They're getting into the mid-80s for plays that they've had to defend. And just to put that into context, teams in the NFL play about 60 to 65 snaps. So this is like playing an additional quarter to a quarter and a half of football if you have to defend this many snaps.
Don't know if Ellington is hurt or not, but we have seen no sign of him, just Roderick McDowell for quite a while. Slant will take him up about a yard shy of a first down as Hopkins caught it.
When you hear that nuke, and that is a childhood nickname for Mr. Hopkins, he used to use the NUK brand of pacifiers as a child, so he got the nickname Nuke, and of course that's the fans saying that, not doing it.
And did you see all the yards he has? Boyd, quarterback keeper, is going to have a first down at the 35. Here's Janine.
Well, guys, DeAndre Hopkins was part of a middle school class where a guest speaker came and said to the students to write down their goals and hopes and dreams while they were in middle school, and I'll follow after this play.
This one is complete to Sam Cooper, the tight end. Janine.
So, guys, that's what DeAndre Hopkins has been doing ever since middle school. He writes down his goals at the beginning of every season, and so far he has achieved every goal he set out for himself this year. His one goal left, to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Whether that's this year or next remains to be seen.
You get the feeling, don't you, Janine, that he can just put a line under that one. He's going to be a first-round pick.
Well, the only thing that they're going to look at is that 40 time and see if that's elite, because everything else about this guy, to me, screams elite receiver. And now, on third down, that's the matchup I would look at in the middle field. Just like we were looking at Landry a moment ago, I think this is all about Hopkins up top.
There are 7 out of 16 on third down. This is 3rd and 4.
And you've got total man coverage on that side. There is a safety on the top of the defense.
Pressure coming. And this may cost them 5. It looked like somebody up front moved. Here's the other thing. This is taking a long time.
Yep.
There's only 4:37 to go on the clock now.
Yeah, you're getting to a place where if you don't score on this one, you may not get it back.
Exactly.
But and here is a huge mistake if you back up 5. If you only have to run a 6-yard route to get beyond the sticks, you can throw that even if a blitz comes, even if it comes free. Now you've got to run a 9 or 10-yard route.
Play of game off defense.
Oh boy.
Number 59. Movement. Not associated with football, drawing the offensive man to move.
So they're calling Jamaria Roscoe for a non-football move, trying to draw Clemson offside. So that is a huge call. But watch number 59. Well, you couldn't see it there. It had to be earlier because all he was doing was reacting to somebody moving. But if you slap the ground or do something that's a non-football move to try to get him to jump, that's a penalty.
What a gift. Flea flicker. Hook and ladder. Reed lays the wood. There's Ellington. But Ellington gets down to the 23-yard line, a gain of 21.
If there's one thing that Chad Morris has a bunch of, it's little trick plays, and this is so hard to defend because everyone's breaking on Humphreys and your angles are completely messed up. You can see the angle by Craig Lawson. The safety was just completely blown because he was going up to tackle Humphreys.
McDowell is taken down in the backfield. Another negative play, Lamine Barrow, who's back in. And again, the clock is becoming such a huge factor. We're approaching 4 minutes. Clemson is probably in 4-down territory from now on.
Yeah, I think you've got to be. There's just no way that you're going to want to give this ball back with this short a time left.
Janine tells us that Barkevius Mingo is in the locker room with some kind of intestinal discomfort. This pass thrown for Hopkins. Tremendous coverage by Thorold Hot Simon, who was right there, and now somebody is it Simon? He's limping, and he was right inside the jersey of DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, and Barkevious Mingo being out is tough on the that's just really good coverage. Looked like right at the end you could see Simon land kind of funny.
Took an awkward step.
Yeah. Right there, just kind of an awkward step on that right foot, but that was excellent coverage. If anything, you know, if you get Hopkins back next year, he's a junior, you get Taj Boyd back. If anything, you start working that throw. You line drive it, you throw it on the back shoulder, you start working on the timing where when the coverage is there, you don't have to try to throw that over the top. You can drill it in and work on the timing of when your receiver turns around.
There is a possibility that none of these guys will go to the NFL draft. There's a chance that all of them will come back. And can you imagine where both of these teams would be in the preseason top 10 if they get everybody back?
Well, if you don't have LSU in the top 5, if they get everybody back and you don't have them in the top 5 next year, you haven't been paying attention. And I think Clemson, the only thing that may keep them out of the top 5, as well as their defense has played tonight. This is against a very conservative offense, but they have not had a great year. So I'm not sure Clemson quite gets in there, but this is 4 down. So I think this is a place where you could do a draw or a screen because you don't need it all here.
3rd and 11. Pressure coming. Ford makes the catch. Hats off to Taj Boyd. They have been in his face all night long. He bought a little time and threw a great pass to Ford.
Nice block by the left tackle who bounced outside, Isaiah Battle. But what an excellent job. The ball had to be thrown early because the defender, Jamario Roscoe, was coming free on that side, and Ford almost didn't see the ball. It got there so early. What a huge first down.
How many times has Taj Boyd had to pick himself up tonight? Now he'll run straight ahead, gets to the 13-yard line.
I mean, you've got McDowell in the game, and I know it's a part of your offense, but just the hits that Boyd has been taking, and he is your entire offense right now.
He's carried the ball 27 times, in addition to all the times he's been hit as a passer. Boy, oh boy. Clemson trying for its 11th win.
And you're not there yet, but LSU's got to start thinking about time, too.
Boyd. Touchdown! DeAndre Hopkins on a bullet. A 2-point conversion would tie it.
Boy, that is a really nice throw. Second read for Boyd. You could see he had to reset his feet. And when he gets it going, Boyd throws the ball as well as anybody in the country. And that was his second read. He looked to the outside, reset his feet. And now, the way Boyd has been running, I think you want him out of the pocket somehow. There is no way this should be a one-man route to a fade or something. I got to think something to the right here to this bunch receiver side.
Taj Boyd has been white hot. Blitz. He rolls and throws. No! The lead remains 2.
And give a ton of credit to John Chavis. He brings another blitz. The coverage is there. Quan Alexander did a great job from his linebacker spot chasing the tight end. So you got pressure and coverage. And 247 in the way your defense has played. I think you kicked this ball away.
Nobody in the end zone for Clemson, and it's a little pooch kick. And LSU will have the ball up the 39-yard line. So LSU saw it coming. Beckham was one of the up men, and Ford was up near the 20.
And the way
that scoped out very well.
And the way Ford has been returning kicks, I like this call by Clemson. Maybe you get LSU not ready for the pooch kick, And the field position, because of the way Ford's been returning, probably about the same as what you would have gotten if you'd have kicked it away. And now for Clemson, it comes down to when do you use that first timeout. I think you do it after maybe second down. The theory, don't use it after first, because if they pick up a first on the next play, it'll be wasted.
Hill is the tailback. The blocker is Copeland. Clemson, everybody at the line of scrimmage, and they're going to throw instead. And they get it to Cadron Boone. Boone makes his second catch of the night.
And
that's a great offensive call.
Great call. And you could just see there was no chance in the world Clemson was playing anything but the run.
Exactly.
Because if you study LSU for any amount of time over the last couple of years, what do you think they're going to do on this drive? Run between the tackles, a couple of toss plays, but they come out throwing a little bit, and now you can't use that timeout because you've got to assume LSU is going to get the first down. With 3, you could still get the ball back even if they do that.
Yeah, you've got 2 shots at a first down, and Mettenberger wants to throw again on the run too high.
Well, in that one, I think you got to run it. If you're going to throw it on
you
first.
may have outsmarted yourself.
Yeah, you got. I think if you go back to what you do and what the run, now you make Clemson decide. Say you don't get it. Do we use a timeout now? But that ball sailed. They had what they wanted. Landry's wide open, and he's been told stay in bounds. And all of a sudden, this Clemson defense looking for their 8th 3-and-out in the game. But I think, knowing Les Miles, this is going to be a run play between the tackles. You got to think that if you're Clemson.
Mettenberger has hit only 5 of his last 13 throws. He had Landry wide open on the last one, and he wants to throw again. Has it batted down. Holy cow, Malachi Goodman, who has 3.5 sacks in a brilliant game, gets a block. And as it turns out, Clemson does not have to use a single timeout in that possession, as LSU threw it 3 times in a row.
Which is very unusual, but once again, it's the defensive front for Clemson. I know it was Goodman who knocked it down, but Josh Watson absolutely beat the right guard, Trey Turner, and Mettenberger couldn't set his feet. I'm not sure that play would have done much even if Goodman wouldn't have been there to knock it down.
The 8th time they've got 3-and-out. Keene with that Australian-style end-over-end bounce, but it won't come back for him. It goes into the end zone. A 53-yard kick. And Taj Boyd, who has been their long-range kicker, has only made 1 this year. That, however, was an ACC record 61-yarder.
So for Benton to have a chance, it's the 44-yard liner in. For Catanzaro at about the 36-yard line, they bring him in, and he's only been one of the most accurate in the country. And because they've got all the time in the world with those 3 timeouts, they can do whatever they want at Clemson.
Boyd, too high for Hopkins. And coverage by Simon.
And just a minute ago, the head coach of Clemson, Dabo Swinney, went over to Spencer Benton. And I'm sure what he's saying is stay near me because we're going to have to make a decision on where the yard line is. But Benton, who hadn't been warming up, Catanzaro had been warming up into the net, had just gone over to start warming up. So depending on what can happen as an LSU player is down.
The injured guy, LeVar Edwards.
And remember,
3 timeouts, you've got a ton of time.
And what a big deal that at the end of the game, Barkevius Mingo, as reported earlier, is out of the game. He's got a stomach ailment. He had a hand injury. But as well as Mingo played for stretches of this game, if you're an LSU Tiger fan, you're thinking, boy, it'd be nice to have number 49 for this type of drive. And for Clemson, because of a blocked extra point by Benny Logan, they were in this position where they're down 2.
He got penetration against Kalon Davis. And if you can back an offensive lineman up a couple of yards, you can block an extra point.
And we were talking about, will Clemson be chasing that? Well, they're chasing it right now.
Kevin Minter, what a defensive game he has had for LSU. All SEC second team has had 19 tackles in this game. Count it. 19. He had 20 against Florida. Second down. It's all on Taj Boyd now. Again, too high. Same route, same pass, same result. Hopkins covered by Thorold Simon, and all at once Taj Boyd can't connect.
And that is the second ball that's floated on this same route, but I think this is pass interference on number 24. Yeah, you've got to call that. The hand went up to the face. It turned around the receiver, and if Simon doesn't make that contact, that's a catch that number 6 makes 10 of 10 times. 4 down territory, obviously.
1:29 left, and all 3 timeouts available to Clemson. Pressure coming, and down goes Taj Boyd.
I think
Sam Montgomery was on the ground and got him.
And I think this, I just don't think you can punt this ball away. You got to call the timeout, which is smart by Clemson, but you've got to go for it here. There's just no way you're going to get this ball back. You're down to 2 timeouts, and the way the math works out, LSU would only have to take knees, so you have to go for it here.
Well, now that you've used the timeout, you could have made the decision to punt if you don't call this timeout because you've had all 3 left.
But the clock would have run and gone under a minute because they wouldn't have got it stopped. And under a minute, you don't need any timeouts to run out the clock. So, unfortunately for Clemson, the math is against them. And now, because once again, the LSU defensive front has stepped up and made another play, minus their top 10 if he comes out pick in Mingo, now you're in a position where if I'm John Chavis, I'm bringing some kind of pressure. I may play zone behind it. So if I'm Clemson, right now there are only 6 guys that can help in pass protection with the 5 offensive linemen and the running back in McDowell. Don't be surprised if LSU tries to free up a 6th man here.
4th and 16. Here comes the pressure on the blitz. Down the middle for Hopkins. He makes the catch to 40. Holy cow. What a catch by Hopkins in the clutch, and what a throw by Boyd.
It was absolutely covered underneath and over the top. Eric Reed, the junior consensus All-American, had good coverage. That was a great throw.
Dropped that thing in there like it had a parachute attached to it. Clock's running. Boyd taking a lot of time here. Blitz coming. He got away. Taj Boyd throws to Hopkins, and he got out of bounds. Boy, oh boy.
And here's that 4th down throw. And you hear the crowd saying, "Nuke, you can't throw that ball any better." The only mistake Reed makes here is he never turns to find the ball. And it was because he got stuck a little bit, and another LSU defender is down. They're starting to lose some guys up front, and now Dabo Sweetie. But that throw, the only mistake Reed made on that was he reached out and he didn't quite make contact, and Hopkins ran by him, and Reed could not quite recover. But that was a nice throw. You see the back of the helmet. Quarterback got that ball out.
DeAndre Hopkins out of Central South Carolina has 178 receiving yards tonight. That is a Chick-fil-A Bowl record. Boy, you would hope so. 178 yards receiving. And this is a 45-year-old bowl game under different sponsorship, of course. But they've been here for 45 years. A lot of good ball clubs have played here. A lot of great receivers. And DeAndre Hopkins, he is just every bit as good as advertised. He has had a brilliant year. Remember last year when Sammy Watkins had 1,219 yards receiving? Well, DeAndre Hopkins coming into this game had 1,214.
And unfortunately for LSU, Barkevius Mingo is already out, and Sam Montgomery is the player who was hurt. So the 2 defensive ends that everybody talks about. Now they have great depth, obviously, but Clemson only needing a field goal. They're in pretty good position. Pick up the huge 1st down on 4th and long, and now LSU down 2 of their best pass rushers.
For Clemson, this will be play 97 in this game. You don't think LSU's defense is gassed? Boyd again, Hopkins. Reed was there in a flag. And Reed is hurt. And the chance of Nuke go up again. They have gone to the well so many times on this pattern.
Pass interference, defense number 1. Spot foul, automatic first down.
And John Chavis is trying to play one of his best guys in coverage. But let's see, pass off to the safety. I'm not sure. That's frame by frame, and it's so easy to call that, but that was awfully close to not calling that.
Pass underneath to the 39-yard line. And now wisely they will take a timeout. If you're going to throw that pass, if it doesn't get out of bounds, you're going to burn a lot of time.
And now for Clemson, you are inside. And I know that Spencer Benton is only kicked 1 for the year, but it was a 61-yarder. So you're in that range for Spencer Benton, your long field goal kicker. But really the guy you want to get to is inside the range of Catanzaro, a guy who's only missed 1 all year. And that's going to be, you get right to the 30, and you're starting to feel very comfortable about Catanzaro going out.
Yeah, I don't think anybody on the sideline right now is saying, let's send out the field goal team and end this.
No.
Now for tonight's Capital One Player of the Game, it's the ACC Player of the Year, Taj Boyd, 34 of 48 for 324 yards. He has also run 28 times. He's just taken a beating and hung in there all night long. Got to be one of the great games of his career. Pressure coming again to the sideline, and it's Hopkins again. Holy cow, what a game these two guys are having.
Well, and Harold Simon is playing off like they're trying to stop a touchdown. That's just way too much air when a team needs 8 or 10 yards to feel comfortable about being in field goal range. That's just way too much cushion. You've got to be up on number 6 in his face in this situation. And now for Clemson, you're inside Catanzaro territory. I wouldn't do anything but run the ball with McDowell or Ellington and try to pick up 4 or 5 more yards.
They'll throw the slant inside the 20 to the 17-yard line. Now Clemson has the upper hand. Now you're looking at where does the kicker want the ball placed.
And for LSU, they are stunned with 2 timeouts. As an LSU player, I believe that's the safety, Craig Lawson, down. But LSU with 2 timeouts, they're frozen. They're a little bit deer in headlights because at some point you've got to start thinking they're going to make the field goal and then they're going to kick off. Well, if this clock is at 0 when they kick it, game is over. So LSU, I think, got caught a little bit. I think they got put on their heels in a way and didn't even think about the fact that they kicked the field goal. We're going to have no time left on offense.
And think about this. It's at 100 plays that the Clemson defense has been on the field.
The LSU defense, yeah.
The LSU defense. If you're a defensive player in 100 plays, you can't have anything left.
No.
Already we've had Mingo hurt, Montgomery hurt, Reed hurt, Loston.
And this is the throw of the night. Good coverage. You had 3 defenders closing in on the territory. A consensus All-American and Eric Reed just missed by about 5 inches on his left-hand jam on the just slippery Hopkins. That goal of being a first-round pick that Janine talked about, this guy might be in there.
Boyd actually loses a couple, but they're trying to get the ball centered. Chandler Catanzaro has missed 1 time this year.
And I think you've got to leave more time if you're Clemson. It's 3rd down. So you get your timeout now, okay? What if there's a bad snap? What if your holder can't handle the snap? Game's over, you lose. I always think on 3rd down, if you're going to kick the game winner, you should leave time that if there is something that goes crazy wrong before you kick it, at least you can have 4th down if your holder takes a knee and calls a timeout. But this is it.
Well, it's going to be up to the special teams. Michael Sobeski will be the snapper, Spencer Benton the holder, and Chandler Catanzaro who has made 17 out of 18 field goals this year, will try from 37 to win it for Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers.
And remember, it was push in the middle of the offensive line that got the PAT block earlier in the game by Benny Logan. So watch how much push the white shirts get in the middle.
Catanzaro to win. And Les Miles, why not? He's not going to keep it in his pocket.
Nope.
Calls time to try to freeze Catanzaro.
If someone, when this game was announced between Clemson and LSU, if someone said it was Clemson's defense that was going to win the game for them with 8 3-and-outs, including one when LSU could have run out the clock under 3 minutes to go in the game, would you have ever bought that?
No, I wouldn't believe it either. But they have. They have played exceptionally well on both sides of the ball. Number 14, Clemson, trying to knock off number 8, LSU. Barring a penalty, this is the final play of the game and the one that will decide it. Catanzaro for the win. Got it! The Clemson Tigers have waited an entire year to make up for that bowl humiliation they suffered a season ago against West Virginia. Tonight, they made up for it and then some.